Hello, hello. I am Chanel Dupree, and I am the Executive Director of the Racial Equity Collaborative, which is a nationwide effort based in Kansas with the mission to provide education, research, and programming to collaboratively support people and organizations engaged in the erasure of systematic racism and the impact it has on people of color involved in systems. Basically, Black and Brown children are involved in systems at a higher rate and have worse outcomes, and we're working to change that. I want to introduce you to a fellow interviewer and also the president of the Racial Equity Collaborative, a board of governors, board of directors, Brandy Turner, who is also the DEI officer for the Kansas Department for Children and Families. Brandy.
Thank you for that introduction, Chanel. And I'm so excited to be here and talk to these two amazing people that I have the pleasure and honor and opportunity to get to work with on many different platforms. So I'm so happy to have you here, Darren and Pega. We're just going to jump into this interview and talk about interactive theater and what it is. But before we do that, I would love it if you would introduce yourselves and tell us your role that you play in this project. Pega, we'll start with you.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Pega Naomi Jimenez. I'm an associate researcher senior at the School of Social Welfare at the University of Kansas. For this particular event, I am quote unquote the producer, only because I'm involved in the planning and some of the creative aspects behind it, kind of, getting everybody in the what we want and how we want this to look, and kind of being that bridge between the REC folks and all of their expertise and Darren, who is our playwright. So that has been my role so far, and I'll pass it on to Darren.
Thank you.
Hey, hey, everyone. Thanks for having me on. My name is Darren Kennedy, he, him, his pronouns. I am a playwright and professor at the University of Kansas. And in my role with REC and this event, I am creating and directing the scenarios and the script that will provide the engagement for the interactive theater event. I've had work up kind of all over the place in Chicago, Kansas, Atlanta, internationally as well. And a lot of my work more specifically deals with Black and Brown communities, particularly in the Midwest, and the ways of both dealing with oppression, but also finding ways to thrive and survive, or stories that entertain me and also grip me. So that is a lot of my work.
That is awesome, Darren. And just, I've had the honor and pleasure again of being able to experience some of your work. And you're absolutely right. It really just moves you and you're able to just be drawn right in and relate. So thank you for being here today. And let's just jump right in there.
Before we do, Pega, can you talk about real quick, just the federal grant that you are leading?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the principal investigator of a 5-year federal grant. It's a field-initiated program to address racial equity within child welfare. It is with the Administration for Children and Families as part of the Children's Bureau office in particular. And this is the first we are part of the first cohort of this particular grant. And it's unprecedented in the sense that to have a federal grant that specifically wants not only to address racial equity, but has a very specific call to center and involve Black and Brown youth and families is a really huge deal to be able to be a part of that. So the University of Kansas is one of 8 grantees nationwide. And we are partnering with the Racial Equity Collaborative, as well as Culture Creations and KFAN in Wichita. So there are kind of our 3 main sub-recipients of the grant. And our goal is to really center and co-design and work with families, Black and Brown families and youth who have been involved in child welfare to really get a sense of like, how can we start moving the pillars forward so that they feel more supported and not harmed, that which has historically been happening for a very, very long time. And I'm just so excited. We're in our planning phase right now, and I'm just really excited to start this. And this community forum, although is being hosted by the Racial Equity Collaborative, I think is going to teach us a lot for the future community forums that come up. And hopefully this can be, intertwined in another way in some of our Kansas Brave work. So I'm really excited that we get to be a part of this before our full implementation.
Right. Well, Pegah, I'm really interested to pick your brain a little bit about the approach to this idea around interactive theater. So let's first talk about what interactive theater is and what inspired you to come to the Racial Equity Collaborative and say, hey guys, let's do an interactive theater.
So it's twofold for me. One is I'm originally from California, from Los Angeles, where we talk a lot about, I mean, I don't think there is a conversation where I don't talk about something that is about racism or about the structural issues that go on. It's kind of like just this thing that happens all of the time. And when I moved to the Midwest, I noticed that people are very careful and very intentional as to how these conversations occur. And it became very clear as to the reasons for that. And it also became very clear that people, though, wanted to know, like, how do we look at systemic issues? How do we deal with them? How do we make different decisions? How can we, move the story forward so that we can be on the other side of it? And so to me, I thought, well, maybe we have to do this in a different way. Maybe the sitting in the classroom and learning about the history has its part, but maybe we also need to add something extra to it. So I knew about interactive theater, or originally it's Theater of the Oppressed, which was created, I guess, by Augusto. Darren, tell me if I'm pronouncing this. Is it Boal or Boal?
Boal. There you go.
Augusto Boal. He's a Brazilian writer, I guess, playwright, or in the theater in some sense.
A theater mensch. He did it all.
Yes. So he came up with this, which was inspired by Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire. If anyone's in education, you'd know who that is. And so the idea being that if there are a lot of these social issues that are happening, these really complex social issues that are happening, we, the people, have a voice in how we handle that. And if we don't know how, then let's practice it. And then let's figure out how to do it. So it was really an opportunity to use this theatrical way to have people not just as the audience, but as an actor in real, in that real setting, to watch a scene of something that's been commonly happening and provide the opportunity for the audience members to come to be in the actor seat to stop or freeze a scene and then do something different. What would the scene sound like if we did that differently? And just really giving people the opportunity to think through these really complex social issues to break barriers and to try to get out of, how can we deal with oppression in these pragmatic and practical ways. And right. Darren, anything else to add on to that, please?
Oh my gosh, that is absolutely at the what you described is truly what interactive theater has become over time. And I think the only thing I would add is that it reminds us that two key things, right? You pointed out that we are all actually actors in the drama of life, right? And that in point of fact, we are all taking action, we are making motions, we have a power, and any number of folks can affect the outcome of a thing. And it understands that theater, in its artifice, in the fact that it's not a real thing and not the actual thing, actually has a power. It can become a laboratory. And so if we use theater and performance in a way that's not built to be like this pristine piece of art, but actually is a way of us thinking through problems that we want to address, that there's a new power there. And that's sort of the draw of it.
Right.
I love that because regarding the Racial Equity Collaborative, our kind of informal saying is from where you sit, how can you impact racial equity? And it's understanding that, you know, whether you're the director, a supervisor, or a worker, there's something that we can all be doing. It's just about identifying that and really understanding how that shows up in the work that we're doing.
Yes.
Absolutely. Or even a playwright. So from what you said, Darren, how can you impact racial equity? And so that leads me to my next question, which is, you know, Peg comes to you with this idea around doing an interactive theater, and it's like, and it's going to be around child welfare, which I understand is not your background.
Right.
Like, this is not your background. So what was the encouragement to say yes to this project?
You know, two major pieces, or actually a few major pieces. One, like my prior trust in Pega, not only as a friend, but as someone who's doing work in the space. So I think I'm at a place in my writing career where I collaborate with people that I trust, who I know have similar politic or similar concerns about the world in which we live. And so that then introducing me to the REC and the collaborative, I said, okay, this is work I can get behind and I'm curious about, I'm invested in. Even though child welfare is not my personal field, my personal field is playwriting, I have a couple of important pieces I've written in the past, one that dealt directly with frontline social workers in Kansas City, dealing with the fallout from removing a child from a home. And then another that place called Ontario Was Here, and another piece of mine called Black Butterflies was about girls of color in incarceration centers. And those were learning processes. And in each case, the closed nature of the traditional performance was important. I did have control and that was great. But in every case, there was something really important and rich and powerful in the conversations that were had in the talkbacks afterwards, when social workers were coming to see Ontario Was Here and saying, you know, I really want to pick at the things that these characters did wrong or the things that these characters did right that I wish more people would do. In the case of Black Butterflies, it was the conversations with girls who had come through the system and had aged out and then become young women, and sort of them thinking through, like watching their tears in my performance and realizing that there was so much that was happening afterwards in their conversation. And so the collaborative and the possibility of interactive theater is to take that performance and say, what if it opens up that place of conversation? What if it makes that part of the moment as opposed to an add-on? And that, I think, to me, again, once I said, oh, this collaborative is about business, about some things, I said, okay, well then I can get into the sandbox to do that.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's been so fun and such a pleasure to work in this very creative way, because oftentimes in this work it feels very procedural, and so, but families aren't. You know, when you're talking about just relationships and the dynamics that come with that, there's so much gray. There's so much. It works for this, it doesn't work for that, and so just to be able to just watch that play out, I'm so excited. I'm so excited about this.
Yes.
Gray is complicated, but our conversations keep coming back to the need to honor the grayness. Right. That's where humanity is. And that question of, is there another way? Like, that to me is exciting. And I keep hearing that in conversations with the collaborative, with everyone. It's like, is there another way? And that's generative to me.
Yeah.
You know, go ahead, Pega.
I was going to say, I think it's also great for the people who work in and around child welfare. I mean, those who are mandated reporters, those who work within the legal system, those who are the, families, the teachers. I mean, all along, all of these places, everyone's working in this gray area, and it makes there are complex decisions that they have to make. And it's
Mm.
looking across this decision line of when a certain decision is made and when a certain decision is not made. You know, I want to be clear that this is not a commentary to say that anyone who works in and around the child welfare system is doing something bad or wrong. And this isn't about the individual, and I really want to take that out. So if anyone's watching this and being like, oh, great, you're going to tell me how bad I am at my job. No, we're going to tell you that you are part of a very complex system that has a very rooted history within being oppressive. And now we want to look at what can we do to do something a little bit differently in these situations, to make a slightly different decision that is within our ability, right? We're not asking anyone to change policies or change laws. It's really just these slight things, and being able to just take a step back when we're not in the situation of having to make quick decisions, to start practicing, how do I slow myself down to think about what would the alternative look like, right? It's about getting us to be curious within a system that can be really oppressive. And I really think that that is such a key to this, because although we might be touching on really hard topics, it's not a commentary on anyone doing anything wrong or bad. It's a commentary of, we're in a system that can be harmful. So now what can we do to make it a little bit more supportive?
Yeah, and you said many things, but I think one of the things that I just want to highlight is, you're right. It is the little things. It is the nuances. It is understanding the power that we're yielding as you're working within the system, and how that can be used to really help families, when historically it has been used to harm families, even when we didn't mean to. And so, and I say we because I've worked in the system, and so I'm also a part of that. And so, so that's important to realize as well. The other piece is that the Racial Equity Collaborative is very intentional about is about making sure that folks understand that it's not just the social workers who are a part of the child welfare system, that it's the legal system, it's the faith community, it's the grandmas, it's the uncles, it's the cousins, it's the activists, it's the researchers, it's the medical community, it's our mandated reporters, it's our teachers, it's all of these different folks that are involved, that oftentimes think, oh, well, look at that system, it's so difficult, it's so this and that, but we all contribute to it. And so that kind of brings me to my next point, my next question for you all, in that, what should people who are going to attend, what should they expect to receive for that day?
I'll jump in first, and then maybe that sets us up. My hope is that what you receive, I'll tag into something that Pega set up. My hope is that you receive an empowerment towards creativity, right? To thinking from an imaginative space about the very thing that, Chanel, that you're mentioning, about each of our places within this larger system. There is something about the space to step outside of that thing which we do regularly, to take a breath and say, okay, if we're not in a punitive space, if we're not in a space of like, you're bad, you're wrong, and we have this dilemma, we know we have a goal to advance equity, and can we take some time to dream and imagine what my power in advancing that equity is? That would be the thing that, as a creative artist, I would hope folks take away from it, is the fact that they do have, I think a lot of times we think that only artists have the ability to think creatively. It's like, no, there's a reason why we've been telling stories around campfires since the very beginning, because creativity and imagining is actually part human. And so I would just say, my hope would be to bring creativity, to bring imagination, to bring that kind of problem solving to the work of as caseworkers and editing and responding to the system.
Yeah, I think what I would add to that is you know, gosh, how do I say this? I think that a lot of times in the work that we all do, whatever our careers are, there comes a time when we think because there are procedures to follow or because there are, mandates and this and that, it takes away from us being curious. And
Mhm.
so I really want people to remember that curiosity can actually lead us down paths that we didn't think were possible from where we sit, but it turns out that it can be. So I think that if anything, that this will also bring that idea of how can I be curious when I'm talking to this family? How can I be curious before I make this recommendation or this decision? How can I be curious before I make that call to CPS? And what is that? Where might that lead me? That might be a little bit differently than what it would have led me to before. And I think the other part that I think people will take away from this is just it opens up the conversations for afterwards as well. I hope that people can take this to other people, their family members, even whomever, so that, this just becomes more and more of a conversation of like, you know what, I do have power. Maybe the power that I have is to be curious and to ask questions. And that's enough, right? We think about changing systems by being this like activist, I'm going to change laws, and sometimes it's just asking the right question. And I hope that people start to feel like I can ask a question. Maybe nothing comes out of it, but at least I chose to ask the question rather than not this one time. And that, to me, that little thing is a start.
Yeah, I love that. It's the power of just owning your mind, right? To me, it's the power of owning your mind, because curiosity leads to a liberation when you're not saying, well, I can't do something because something or someone told me I couldn't. And the question is, who said? Who said you couldn't ask that question? Who said you couldn't be curious and think and creatively? Um, and it really just, that thought that you shared there, just it made me think of something that I teach in leadership around the power of accepting that reality, because then it does lead to creative thinking. And so that's another piece to add to this, is that the acceptance that comes with this work. It is not an agreement. It's not saying I agree and I embrace this and I love this. This is saying I accept that this is the reality, and now I'm curious on how I can change it. And so that's another piece, so that we're not fighting against the grain.
Yeah. The other piece that I want to add is that we're also going to feed people.
Oh.
So people are going to get food.
That part.
It's pretty important. Okay.
It's really important.
Yeah.
Because if there's not food, it could have been an email, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. There'll be food, there'll be giveaways,
Yes.
there'll be lots of, we're a fun group. We're
We
definitely
are.
a fun, even if it's an all-day event, we're a fun group.
Yes. If you have never attended an REC event, you know that you are going to be well fed. You are going to think deeply. You're going to interact. You're going to have games. You're going to have all those different things. And so just real quickly, I want to share the actual website that you can go to, which is racialequitycollaborative.org. And you can see on here, it's on our home screen. You can see the beautiful flyer that we have. And the official name of this is Disrupting and Dismantling Racial Inequities in Child Welfare, an interactive theater event. It's flashed across the screen, but I'll say it, that this event will happen on a Wednesday, April 24th, 2024, from 9 a.m. At the very latest 4 p.m. And it will be at the Lead Center in Lawrence, Kansas. And just stay tuned for any professional development credits that will come out of that. So that will be forthcoming, but it's very simple. You just click on the buy tickets. This event is $25. However, we do have limited scholarships available. So if you need a scholarship, all you need to do is follow the instructions, which is emailing info@racialequitycollaborative.org to request that. The big thing also is that there is free parking at the Lead Center.
That's also very important.
Yes, so we are very
Huge.
excited about that. And just to also say it, it's going to be at the Lead Center located in the pavilion. So that'll be the room that it'll be located in. And so I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can see beautiful people. But I want to just open up the space and just see if there are any final thoughts.
I have one final thought, and then Darren, if you have any, you know, if anyone is like thinking, oh, we're trying this new thing and it hasn't been done in other professional settings, like what is this? What are you going to get me involved in? And I want to say that I had to actually research this quite a bit, and this has been done in medical settings with medical students. This has been done in university settings with both faculty and students. So it's been done in other places and other ways to help people, again, kind of work through, how do I have a difficult conversation with a patient or with their families, or if there are inequities with patients based on race, how can I see that in a different way? So, I mean, this has been used in a professional development modality, in not just by us, but in the past, and that was a huge reason why we're like, okay, let's try this in our area of work and whom we work with. So I also want to say, like, this, this didn't come out of nowhere. This isn't the first time. Like, I promise you, there is reasons behind doing this, and if it's out of your comfort level, it's out of our comfort level too. So don't worry, we're here to learn together, and I think it's going to be a really rewarding day.
Yeah. Darren, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, if you come in with a spirit of collaboration, exploration, curiosity, then that's where the magic happens, in my experience with interactive theater. And the other thing that I think I will tag team into, Brandy, as coming out of your comment, I also think my hope is to empower disruption. Sometimes we gotta interrupt regular flow of things, and understandably, we're built to be scared of disrupting the regular flow or the expected flow. And sometimes the great thing about interactive theater is that it actually builds disruption into the process, so that you can then imagine another possibility. So creating a place where disruption doesn't feel like an attack or an undoing of your career and your job, but the space to say, like, the pause, the breath, the question, the disruption opens up new possibilities. So that's my only last thought.
Yeah.
I love it. Brandy, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I would love to just thank both of you. Again, I just want to echo and amplify the positional power that you took to send a message, to allow space for an opportunity, to allow us to bring our authentic selves to a space to wonder and be curious about how we can advance racial equity. So thank you for using your talent as a playwright, Darren, to do that. And Pega, your talent and your lived experience of having conversations and saying, yes, I'm willing to do that, and to be the disruptor that Darren just said that we should be, right? So thank you so much for your willingness to do that.
This is awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining. You have just heard a kind of a preview of disrupting and dismantling racial inequities in child welfare, the interactive theater event, which will be happening on Wednesday, April 24th at 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Grab your tickets. There are limited seating available. And so once it's sold out, it is sold out. And let me tell you something, this is a production. Okay. So this isn't something that will come around every few months. So you don't want to miss this event. And again, thank you everyone for joining, and we will see everyone soon.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.